Hello, everyone. I'm Harvey Brownstone, and today our guests are Canada's iconic and most enduring band, Glass Tiger. They exploded onto the music scene in 1986 with their quadruple platinum and gold legendary debut album, The Thin Red Line, and they've been an unstoppable force ever since. They've won 5 Juno Awards, they've toured the world, and they never let their fans down because they've always stayed true to their rock roots. I am thrilled to welcome lead vocalist Alan Frew, guitarist Al Connolly, and keyboardist Sam Reed. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, man. Thank you for inviting us.
You guys are such a huge part of the soundtrack of our lives. Your fans feel like they grew up with you, but the music industry has changed so much since the 80s when you started out. Now it's all about self-ownership, self-promotion, self-management. How have you guys navigated the changes in the music industry over the years?
Well, I think we've just stayed true to our genre and true to our fans. And any new fans that we've managed to gather up along the way is a bonus. So we've just remained true to the music. When we get together, we approach it like we always have. We don't try and dabble in stuff that's just not in our wheelhouse. And our loyal fans that have been with us through the 80s and 90s and the 2000s, that's who we really are aiming for. And then, as luck would have it, you get, we do shows now where I'll ask the audience how many people have seen Glass Tiger before, and maybe only a third of them, somewhere between a third and half, put their hands up. And I'll ask how many are seeing us for the first time. And believe me, it's like almost half the audience every time. So it just means that these younger fans have been looking and searching for something outside of their wheelhouse and their genre, and they find us. So that's what we've done. We've just remained true to the spirit of that.
Well, I think that you actually are part of the wheelhouse of the younger fans because your songs are really classic.
Thank you.
Well, that's nice. It's always nice to have the younger generation discover them.
Your first big hit, Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone, is of course a classic that everybody loves. The album was produced by Jim Vallance, who was the songwriting partner of Bryan Adams. Bryan ended up singing backup on that song, but I have to tell you guys, a lot of people make a big deal about the fact that Bryan Adams sang on that song, but honestly, I think the song would have been a huge hit whether Bryan Adams sang on it or not.
It's certainly a compliment when the opportunity for Bryan, because he was such a strong partner with Jim, he got to hear the record as we were making it, and for an established artist to reach out to a young band that was starting out, and it was a huge compliment for him to say, hey, I'll sing on that with you. So we were delighted that he did join in, though, and it was a lot of fun now looking back on that opportunity.
Oh, totally. It always bothers me when interviewers make such a big deal about it because that song was going to be a through the roof hit, regardless of him singing backup or not.
Agreed.
Thank you. Better than me singing backup.
Is it true that one of your inspirations for the Thin Red Line album, especially Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone, was Tears for Fears?
Yeah, there was the studio set up at that time with Jim Vallance. Alan and Sam had gone in with myself. They threw on the record by Tears for Fears, a song by Tears for Fears that had a groove that really locked in with everybody. It was a hit on radio at that time as well. And just copying the groove it's a thing that a lot of writers do. And we found that out from Jim Vallance at the time as well. You can pull a beat and start a rhythm. So it was a shuffle beat, and it ended up being that same tempo almost. And but the rest of the song just became Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the song was Everybody Wants to Rule the World.
Shuffle.
That's it.
Yeah, that was it. We listened to a few albums that day, and Songs from the Big Chair, which was just came on. And we listened to a few cuts, but it was when Everybody Wants to Rule the World came on, Vallance went, oh wow, shuffle beat. And he just ran for the drum machine and created a shuffle beat. and the rest is history.
It sure was. In 1987, you toured with Tina Turner on her Break Every Rule world tour. Did you get a chance to get to know her at all?
I do remember we were there for around 3 months, and it was a big tour. It was a big stages, big audiences. And I do remember at the beginning of the tour, she came in the dressing room with a bottle of champagne with Roger Davies, her manager, and very classy lady. And she welcomed us personally onto the tour. And that was a great way to start a very classy operation, right down to the crew guys and the band. We hung out with the band. My Al might remember, but we ended up getting quite close to her band because they were kind of traveling along the same lines as what we were traveling. So we would see Tina from time to time. And she was very, very kind to us and that, but we really hung out with her band, and they were a great bunch of people.
Yeah, her manager, Roger Davies, invited us to everything that was on the side, everything that was going on. They were very open, and she was very welcome, but she was also doing almost 2 hours a night. And she had a pretty strong show when you saw it. So I think she took a lot of time to take it easy, as you didn't hang around, if you will, the same way that maybe the band members.
Yeah, that makes sense. In 1991, on your third album called Simple Mission, which is my favorite actually, you recorded the song My Town with Rod Stewart. Can you share any memories of recording with him?
I probably met Rod in '89. I met him at an after party at the Juno Awards, and they had told me I'd get a few minutes with him, which ended up turning into a few hours because he's such a big football fan and Scotland and the whole bit. So Rod and I hit it off, and we became pals. And when I was in Los Angeles with a band, I would call him and we'd meet, and we'd maybe go for a bite to eat or go for drinks and blah, blah, blah. And we had written, Al Conley and Wayne and Jim Cregan had written the music for this song that it just spoke to me in a Celtic way. And I put the melody and lyrics to it that we now know. And everybody was happy. And Sam has always been very involved in the production side of things. So they brought in a few singers to try and match up with me vocally for not so much a duet, but really that to be great backup vocals. And it wasn't quite working. And then they found a guy from the UK and he did it. And that was fine. And one night I was out for dinner with Rod, and this guy came into the restaurant, and I said his name, and Rod said, "Oh, I know him," and he called him over, and the guy came over at the table, and we exchanged pleasantries, and the guy said to Rod, "Have you heard the song that these guys have written about Scotland?" And Rod said, "No." And he said, "Oh man, you should hear it. It's really great." And so then he left, and Rod Stewart said to me, "Why the F did you not ask me to sing on it?" And I said, "Well, I didn't want to play that card. You know, I didn't want to do that. I want to sing on it. I want to sing on it." So we came on to Canada, and I told Sam that Rod was going to do it. Sam and I went back to LA, and I'll actually let Sam pick the story up from there, because he was actually behind the console on the day Rod did it.
Well, it was one of those things where you were always on pins and needles a little bit because of his schedule. And so I think we booked it maybe 2 or 3 different times with his assistant. And, you know, you basically were just crossing your fingers. And then all of a sudden they're like, "Okay, Saturday, that's the day, you know, go into Ocean Way in LA. That's where he's recording." But he wanted us to come to his studio. I guess it's for his engineer. And I said, "No problem." So we prepped the track at our studio in LA, and I just waltzed over with the tape and set it up. And then in he came. I mean, it's one of those surreal moments because, you know, obviously a huge fan, huge star. And all of a sudden he walks around the corner and like, that's Rod Stewart. There he is, you know. And of course, Alan and him went out in the booth and started belting out the vocals, and he just owned it. It just came to life, the whole track. And so it was such a great day. I wish it was in the day that we had more access to cameras, because there isn't a single photograph of that session. It was just what's in our memory banks really right now. But we finished it in a few hours, and he nailed it, and we went back and mixed it, and I just think the arrangement and the voice fit in perfectly, and couldn't be happier. And I think when Al got to hear it, he was pretty pleased with the final result as well. So thumbs up.
Oh, it blew our minds to hear at the end. Yeah, it was like just an unexpected situation, and really a nice touch to the song. Not that the song doesn't sound great with just Alan singing it, but it's a nice touch.
It does, but there's something magical about the blending of those two voices. It really was a magic moment. I actually was going to ask you if there was any video footage at all, because it's just a real highlight of that album, which already is a classic album.
Thank you.
Okay, so I have to go there. You've been asked a million times, but in 1993, you guys broke everybody's hearts. You stopped performing. Everybody thought you broke up, and then you got back together in 2003. I know that you were all busy pursuing other projects in those 10 years, but what made you decide to take that 10-year hiatus, and what made you decide to come back to us?
We released Simple Mission, and there was, there's a lot of pitfalls in being a Canadian act signed out of Canada with the Canadians completely in control. Without getting too deep into the politics of it, we suffered a little bit because of that, because the American label started to sort of take the attitude, well, if we're not putting coin into it and money into it, why are we here? And so we were starting to suffer a little bit from that, and we noticed it on the Simple Mission album. That was it in a nutshell. And we were tired. And we had, I'd been non-stop touring for 5 or 6 years. And I know personally, I can't speak with other guys, but personally, I had reached a wee bit of an impasse and sort of said, guys, I think I'd like to take a break and try and do something different. And everybody sort of, nobody really put a fight up, because I think we were all kind of feeling that. Ironically, we drifted apart that way, and yet when I was working on some solo stuff, Al and Sam were right there, and the three of us were writing and recording, and I dabbled with a couple of solo albums, and the guys were right beside me.
Yeah, I've always got the feeling that the bond between the three of you remained, and it was such a thrill when you got back together. And then Alan, in 2007, you surprised everybody with a book entitled The Action Sandwich, a 6-step recipe for success by doing what you're already doing. The book is very motivational and funny and inspiring. I've actually read it twice. What I want to ask you is, if you had written the book during the pandemic, would you have changed anything?
Very good question.
I ask you that because I decided to read it about 4 months into the pandemic. I remembered that your book gave me a shot in the arm and actually inspired me to start up this show. I wondered what Alan would have said if he was writing the book now during the pandemic. Would Alan have changed anything?
Well, one of the major things that I believe in is, if it's not about this, it must be about that. So I don't really see failure. I see as a lesson learned. And then sometimes, like the three of us right now with you, we think it's about this podcast, not realizing that by meeting you, something may gel, and you make a phone call and you say, hey guys, I'm doing this. And before you know it, we're all doing something else. That's always been sort of my philosophy. As we speak, I've been painting recently. I'm painting, and people are commissioning it. And so what I thought was a real
I think you should have had your kitchen done by now.
Yeah, really. I like that. I'll give you a date for that. So what you think it's about, it's not really. So I probably would have, the book would remain the same in its essence, but I would probably have been affected by what we're all going through, and trying to have people keep that spirit of never giving up. And, you know, from this can come that. So when you think you know, like, look at us, we're not working, live music is gone, but everybody's dabbling in other stuff. And I would try and encourage people to do that. You know, that you're not defined just by the fact that you get up at 8 o'clock in the morning and you go to the office and you come home at 4 in the afternoon, and now the office is closed because of the pandemic. So I'd have probably taken that kind of approach.
Well, Al, you've been teaching throughout the pandemic, haven't you?
Yes, well, but I take Alan's words. I appreciate how his sentiment, because it's, as he said before, it's the power of intent. And I work with special needs kids, and I continue to do that, and I've always done that. And there's a lot of probably the mothers and fathers of these students dealing with a lot in their lives, and have for years and years. So going in there every day and seeing them, in fact, that beauty of, you know, we can't embrace each other. We have to miss out on the love, but the fact that we see people and smiling faces that, you know, are just taking things day to day gives you a little bit of a boost yourself. You know, you get something from that. And it keeps me going too, right? Because we have to all sort of circle around this and wait this. And at the end of the day, I come back and it helps me write music. You know, I come back to the studio, and I'm in here and I create things because of that interaction.
Right.
Sam, have you found that the pandemic has given you an opportunity to contemplate and reinvent yourself as well?
Well, the one thing that I didn't know was going to be such a bonus, for about 7 years, I had a commercial recording studio that took me kind of away from home and away from my little home setup, and pre-pandemic, not knowing what was around the corner, I had recently shut that studio down in favor of going back to the old days, kind of when Alan and Al, when they used to come up, I'd been in the same place, and we used to have a little workroom here, a lot of the early Glass Tiger stuff. And I really missed that workspace, separate from your home, but a nice little corner that you can work in. And I had just finished setting that up again, and then the pandemic hit. So it was fortuitous for sure to have that space. And then we realized all our gigs were out the window. So the three of us went, you know, we got to have something positive to show for our downtime. So let's use this space. Alan's got a lovely studio. Al's got studio space. We just traded, you know, our spaces, and that's kind of what I'm sitting in here right now, actually. So this is my little slice of heaven here that I can separate church from state and get to work in here. And it's only about 100 feet away from the room that we wrote the early Glass Tiger stuff in. So this is a new space, but we're using it for new songs. And instantly we created a Christmas record, and 33 before that. And it's been a very creative space.
It's good karma there, Sam. Good karma.
Yeah, I'm happy here.
You know, guys, I still remember so vividly seeing you on TV in 2009 performing for the Canadian troops in Afghanistan, and you did it again in 2010. What was it like going there and performing for the soldiers?
What began as a sort of what we thought was going to be a one-off, back in 1994 or something like that, when the Bosnian War was on, when Yugoslavia was fragmenting and whatnot, I got an invite to do much more of a sort of kind of Bob Hope review kind of thing. And, you know, they had a little honorarium that they were going to pay you, but it was going to take like 3 weeks to do it. You know, it's not in and out. It was going to, and I called my partner in crime there, Sam Reed, and I said, "Hey, Sam, wacky idea. How would you like to go to Bosnia?" And he said, "Well, okay, well, as long as the pub's open." And so we toddled off to Bosnia, and we came back. And I know for me personally, I thought it was just going to be a kind of one-off thing, but it gets into your psyche and into your blood and into your heart and soul, just how selfless these men and women are out there doing what they do. So I went back one more time. I went to Egypt and Israel, and then they kind of upped the game a little bit, and they told us about this thing called Canada Cares, which has got nothing to do with any honorariums of any kind. You're doing it for the love of it, but they kind of get you in and get you out faster. And you go in with hockey players and comedians and whatnot. We just got sort of a real sense of honor to get to do it, to go over and see them and bring a bit of Canada to them and remind them that, you know, we care. And that's really why we did it. And like I say, Sam and I have been over several times, and it never wears thin. And then to actually get up and entertain them and perform for them, it's just something that's so heartfelt. And one thing that we all experienced, we were there as a band on the morning that 3 of our young men had been killed. One was seriously injured and the other 3 were killed. And the plane that we were due to fly home on, we had to give it up for those caskets. And we thought for sure the party would have been cancelled. But General Matinchuk said, absolutely not. Now more than ever, you guys have got to go on stage and perform and celebrate the lives of these young men and celebrate the fact that we're all still here and alive. And so it was an incredible experience to be on stage, perform a concert, finish with the finale of Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone, and then immediately go from that to what they call the ramp ceremony, where we stood shoulder to shoulder with thousands of our troops and their allies and watched these 3 caskets being paraded past and boarded onto the plane and sent home to Canada. Something I'm sure I speak for the guys. It's something.
It's a very powerful moment, that was. Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder whether you guys realized how proud your fans were and are of you for going there and doing that. I was just, I had tears in my eyes watching it.
It was certainly, like Alan said, I think the take home for us was just, it changes our lives, you know, which is, you know, you do it once and then you do it and you think, oh, it's the same trip. It's never the same trip. Any of the opportunities that we were invited to do, we did. Alan did more. We did all the ones that we could because we just loved doing them. And honestly, it felt like, you know, we were, you know, it was just a real proud moment to have and a very unique moment. You know, I always had that feeling like, you know, in the entire country, especially if you're a civilian, who gets an opportunity to see them in theater? Who gets an opportunity to see what they do on site, what they call outside the wire, and stuff like that?
May I share a quick story with you?
Oh, please do.
Sam and I were in Afghanistan. Sam and I got separated and we went up into the mountains to several forward operation bases. And in this one in particular, there was only Sam and I, and he had a little keyboard with a little microphone plugged into the keyboard with my voice coming out, a little speaker within the keyboard, really low tech. And it was very early in the morning. It was already like, I don't know, almost 40 degrees. And Sam and I were in a corner in the sand and, you know, in the heat. And we were doing a little run through of the Thin Red Line. General Vance, being the amazing orator and politician and motivator that he is, sent his aide over, and the aide said, General Vance is going to be doing a medal ceremony. He's going to be pinning medals on the chests of these young men and women for their bravery and for their dedication. And he wonders if you would perform Thin Red Line as he's doing it. And Sam and I were like, really? I said, okay. So I think I can't remember, I might have been sitting cross-legged on the ground, and Sam's in this little mini keyboard. And we start playing Thin Red Line, and it's like 8 o'clock in the morning, and these young soldiers are standing to attention, and the general's calling out their names one by one, and they're marching up to him, and he's pinning medals on the chest and congratulating them and thanking them for their service and their bravery. It's something we'll never forget it, ever. I mean, what a moment.
Is there any footage of that?
Yes,
No.
there is.
Oh, is there? Oh,
Yes.
there you go. The hoarder has it.
I have all. I'm the band pack rat. I have all.
There's got to be a couple of days of footage from the visit we had. I'm sure from other visits.
Yes, yet and never been seen. We're going to probably put something together, maybe for Remembrance Day or something.
I think you guys should. I know everybody would love to see it. Now, I want to ask you, Alan, in the summer of 2015, you had some really serious health problems. It took some time, but I think you had a miraculous recovery. The album that was supposed to be 30 became 31. Alan, how are you feeling these days?
Aging sucks. How's that? We all know that. I've had my fair share of trouble in the last 5 years. I had a stroke and I had a retina that kept detaching multiple times and ended up having surgery on my eye. And then lo and behold, in 2019, I had a collapse and I broke my neck in 2 places, just weeks, but days before leaving to go on tour with Corey Hart and Glass Tiger. So I've had my fair share of shit, and but the boys know me, and they gather round. And when anything happens to Glass Tiger, you just sound the alarm, and we're a family. And so when I had my stroke, it was never in any doubt that we would cancel touring and we'd cancel recording of the album, and they gathered around me, and it was just all about, being together and, recovering. That's what we're like. And so, with the strength of people like that around you and the loving care of family, you just dig deep, and I'm doing okay. My voice, ironically, through all of this, I'm sure the boys would attest to this, through all these knocks and bumps, my voice is probably as good, if not better than ever. So I'm touching wood here. I don't know why that is, but hey, we'll take it.
Well, I hope you know that your fans, your longtime fans, consider themselves part of your family too. And there's a lot of love around you, all 3 of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, in September 2017, you guys once again made Canada so incredibly proud when you gave a free concert in Prince George to thank the city for receiving over 11,000 evacuees from the British Columbia fires. You guys should be so proud of what you did.
Again, incredible courage, these people against some amazing odds to be able to go out and deal with that in those remote locations. And they pull fire and fire crews, from all over the country. And, and my oldest daughter is a firefighter. So I have a sort of a little closest to my heart for firefighters for sure. And that's the field that she went into. And the people we met out there in Prince George that had basically kind of gathered up to help that community, it's pretty impressive. It was it was an honor for us to be able to perform for them and say thank you.
You don't hear a lot about Canada and the fires that take place, but when you get out there and you see what people had to do to retreat from their houses and then, get into the city, and the people that were in the hospitals and whatnot, and all of those people, as Sam said, that came in to help out, it's incredible to see everything. They were showing us films of fires breaching their property into their homes. And it was just shocking to see. You always see it in Los Angeles, not to take away from Los Angeles, how terrible that is. But boy, it is something to see in BC and Alberta and places like that.
Yeah.
Well, you lifted everybody's spirits. And then in 2019, you released another one of my favorite albums, 33. There's a song on it that is just so poignant because it's being sung by a band that's been together for 40 years. The song is called Dying Is Easy With You. Sam, you co-produced that album. Is that song one of your favorites?
You know, we were going through the process as we always do, where we gather up songs. You know, I'll put things in a hat. Alan puts in a hat now, and then we thrash them around. And at the end of that process, we end up with an A list of songs that we focus on, and that's the way we've always made records. And that song, when Alan, I don't even know whether he immediately put it in his hat, but I remember he was like, "Well, I've got this other song." And they were like, "Oh, let's play everything right now." And I remember hearing it, and it hit me right away, that song, how powerful it was. And I love the presence of his voice on it. And it feels like, you know, it's one of those really present vocals that feels like it's this close to you. And I think the lyrics, and I thought, this is a very unique track. And it's also a track that would be very unusual for Glass Tiger to do, but and as you said, 40 years. If this was the band in 1986, we could never wear that song.
I remember Sam saying that one of the reasons he was giving it the thumbs up was that only a sort of 40-year veteran band could do that, because, you know, it's not something we could have done in 1986, having not lived the lives we've now lived. Ironically, you know, when you do an album, certain songs sort of rise to the surface, and like as you mentioned that song, I'd already forgotten all about it. You probably too, guys. I just haven't listened to it in so long.
I gotta tell you, and this sounds like I'm making it up. I listened to it today.
Yeah, I did too.
How many times, Sam? How many times, Sam?
Twice.
So for me, you know, I look at albums and you think Thin Red Line, and you immediately go, Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone and Someday, and Diamond Sun and Searching. So when we put 33 out, This Is Your Life, and probably This Is London, maybe, sort of were the two songs that everybody sort of jumped on. And so the certain songs get sort of overlooked through time. And Dying Is Easy for me was one of them. I must listen to it again. I haven't heard it in a long time.
And having said what you've said about that, I was going to say that when This Is Your Life, when Alan had unfortunately gone through what he did with his neck, and he decided to go out on tour, being the strong-willed person that he is, we went out to our first date, and Alan literally had to be walked to the center of the stage to open for Corey Hart. And when he was at the center of the stage, he couldn't move very much. But Alan did every song for 40 minutes while we were up there. And the last song was This Is Your Life. And when Alan sang that, he explained why he wasn't moving. And it really won over the audience, because they didn't realize what was going on. And that continued for every date after that across Canada with Corey Hart. And that song had a great emotional feel to it and stamp to it by the end of our touring on that tour across Canada. And I would really advise anybody that's out there hasn't heard 33 to go listen to that song, because it really does encapsulate, I think, what you're talking about with where we're at with the music right now.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know whether you're aware, Dying Is Easy with You is a song that is being played at a lot of memorial services throughout the pandemic. Alan, I'm sure you've been told this before, but Alan, you have the kind of voice. When a person is listening to you sing a song like that, you feel like you're singing it just to me, just to the person listening. It's probably no surprise to you, but when you sing a song like that,
right,
it's really magic.
I just call myself a pub singer, right? I know I've got a good voice, but I come from a wee country where so many people have good voices in the pubs and the football matches and whatnot. But I'm not stupid. I realize that we've touched people with our music and with my vocals. And I've had people, you know, contact me before with songs like Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone. And they said it was my dying mother's wish to hear that song, or etc. But you've really surprised me tonight with Dying Is Easy, because I just had lost touch with it. I didn't realize that.
Well, you guys are part of our youth. Your fans feel that we grew up with you. And then in the fall of 2020, when we were all so depressed in the midst of the pandemic, Glass Tiger comes to the rescue. You release a holiday album, Songs for a Winter's Night. You've got Gordon Lightfoot, Rock Voisine, Natalie McMaster, and more. Whose idea was this? Because your timing could not have been better.
Well, we can blame Sam.
Yeah.
Sam, listen,
There's the guy.
anytime Glass Tiger puts a new album out, period, you can blame Sam because Sam has this, what am I looking for, Al? Is this never...
Sam's the hardest working man in our rock and roll.
Yeah.
It's called desperation.
He has
But
this
I
never
think that Sam is also very intuitive, and something must have moved you to do a holiday album, because I don't think anybody saw that coming.
Well, Sam's wanted to do a holiday album for 10 years.
Okay, so it's actually, I'll correct Alan there. It's probably more like 20 or 30 years.
Wow.
Well, we've always hinted about doing a holiday song, a Christmas song, whatever, and it's come up in discussions. I think even at one point, the Capitol Records in the early days suggested it. We could never get our head around it. We've never figured it out. And then we went off and made our own records and whatever. And then the Christmas stuff just fell by the wayside. And then when the pandemic hit and I realized there was no tour, I called Alan and I called Al and I said, this is a golden moment. Like, we already were chipping away at ideas in a folder. The funny thing about the Christmas record, which I think is organic, is we started off thinking of covers. So we were making a list between the three of us of songs that we felt we could do justice to. And the list got smaller and smaller and smaller, and to the point where we're like, you know, I've got this other idea. And all of a sudden Alan went, well, if I sing this lyric to it and we do this melody, it's a holiday Christmas song, whatever. And it's all about this, and it's all about family and love and togetherness and everything. I went, well, that's all you need in a holiday Christmas song. So the whole record, except for the Gordon Lightfoot track, ends up being original, no cover, like except for the one cover. So we ended up going that route, and we were so much happier to do that.
You get a chance to actually change directions with music in ways you never thought you'd do, including, bringing in an opera singer.
Right, just wacky things. And we were just like, the world does not need to hear another version of Jingle Bells. It just doesn't.
No, I think you made it a really great Glass Tiger album that is a special one for the holidays, but it's still got your stamp on it. Their original songs, the artists that you chose to join you, blend beautifully. It's just a beautifully done album. I bought a whole bunch of them and gave them out to all my friends. It was a perfect gift. And I just want to thank you for doing it. It was a real gift.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, the big question, of course, when do you think you'll be performing live again? I know you're booked for the Penticton Peach Festival this summer. Is that going to happen?
I don't think so.
It's hit and miss. We just go day to day now on this.
Well, for those fans like me that have been missing Glass Tiger's concerts, I want everybody to know that there is a 2005 live album recorded at the Phoenix Club in Toronto. It's been getting a lot of airtime at my house during the pandemic. You can get that CD on Glass Tiger's website. So thank you guys for keeping us in the groove while we've all been in the lockdown. I hope you know how much that live album has meant to your fans, because those who've never been able to get to one of your concerts can hear that album and at least get the feel of what it's like.
Well, we have something else in the wings that, again, if it wasn't for Mr. Reed, none of this stuff would get done. But we did a live album at Massey Hall just over 2.5 years ago. We did Massey Hall, and it's in our possession. It looks fabulous. It sounds great. We just have to bring it to you.
Yeah, we'll get that out.
But is that going to include songs from 31 and 33?
I think it does.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, please do it. Come on, Sam.
All right, I'm working on it tonight.
So I gotta ask you, do you guys ever talk about retirement, or are you just happy to keep going because the fans want you to keep going?
Hey, if this is what retirement feels like, I want to keep going. I
Well,
want to get out and do things.
I mean,
Play.
I think I speak on behalf of the lads. I mean, we're sort of at the mercy of the voice, and so far so good, like I mentioned. And my energy is still up, and I still love it, and I love being out with the band. And these guys are my family. We're all family together. We actually love what we do, and when we're on the road, you know, this is still a band that gets up in the morning to have breakfast with each other or lunch, and then afterwards we're all in the pub together having a beer. Other bands have seen us on the road and are stunned that we even like each other. Seriously, they can't figure it out, but we do. We love each other. So as long as I'm able to sing them, I guess we'll be able to play them. And you know, I certainly don't want to retire anytime soon, and I know the boys don't. So there's another album, another tour in us. You know, it's coming.
That's really, really great to hear. I think that feeling that you have for each other definitely comes across. I've seen you guys in concert numerous times. I want to know whether you feel the love that we're trying to throw at you.
Well, I think at this time we have had a lot of interaction, of course, the way we're doing the Zoom call through our social media accounts and that's kind of where the fans can stay connected with us. And that has definitely been, you know, very active, especially over the release of the Christmas record. And we know they're in the side wings, and it really makes us feel inspired to know that we're just waiting for this to improve, and we'll get back. And it's wonderful that through this, we at least have that connection with them.
Do you notice when you look out at the crowd that it's getting younger? Because I have.
Yeah, I mean, that goes back to that point I was making, where it doesn't matter whether there's 500 people in the audience or whether it's a festival and there's 15,000. When I asked them, how many of you have seen us before, only about 1/3 of the hands go up. And then when I asked that third, how many of you saw us in 1986, that diminishes even further. So, you know, I would probably say that in that age group, anywhere from, you know, early 20s up to mid 40s, these people are sort of discovering us relatively for the first time, and it's humbling. We love it.
Well, it's very well deserved. Alan, Sam, Al, I really want to thank you for coming on our show. Getting to interview Glass Tiger will always be a very special memory for me. We booked this interview on short notice, and I'm really grateful you were able to make it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our pleasure.
Thank you. Our pleasure.
Our guests have been Alan Frew, Sam Reed, and Al Connolly, better known as Glass Tiger. My name is Harvey Brownstone. Thanks to our producer, Steve Silver. Thank you all for joining us. See you next time.
Remember to subscribe to the Harvey Brownstone Interviews YouTube channel. And be sure to check out more great interviews with Harvey Brownstone on harveybrownstoneInterviews.com.